Maya Patel Williams commanded attention the moment she entered any room, not because of her striking beauty, though she possessed that in abundance, but because of the quiet confidence that radiated from her like a force field. At 35, she had achieved what most considered impossible, becoming Silicon Valley's youngest black female billionaire and CEO of Tech Fusion, a company that was revolutionizing artificial intelligence. Her journey began in a modest Oakland apartment, where her Indian mother and African-American father instilled in her an unshakable belief that excellence knew no color. Young Maya spent nights taking apart computers while her peers attended parties, teaching herself to code while others slept. By 14, she had built her first app. By 16, she was debugging software for local businesses. Stanford came calling with a full scholarship, recognizing in Maya the rare combination of technical brilliance and leadership potential. It was there, during her final year presenting her groundbreaking AI research, that she first met James Williams. He stood out among the venture capitalists in attendance, younger, sharper, with a keen understanding of both technology and human nature that matched her own. James wasn't just another Harvard MBA with dreams of Silicon Valley glory. He had built and sold 2 successful startups by 30, earning a reputation as the golden oracle for his ability to spot revolutionary technology. But in Maya, he saw something beyond just another investment opportunity. Her AI platform wasn't just innovative, it was transformative. Their first meeting in his San Francisco office was scheduled for an hour. 6 hours later, they were still hunched over whiteboards, trading ideas and finishing each other's sentences. Maya's technical vision combined perfectly with James's market intuition. By midnight, they had outlined the foundation of what would become Tech Fusion. The company's rise was meteoric. Maya's AI technologies proved revolutionary, while James orchestrated a series of masterful deals that brought in top talent and crucial partnerships. Within 3 years, Tech Fusion was valued at over $50 billion, disrupting everything from healthcare to autonomous vehicles. Their professional partnership blossomed into romance naturally, almost inevitably. Late nights reviewing code turned into dinner discussions about changing the world. Strategy sessions evolved into walks along the beach at sunset. They shared not just a vision for technology, but a desire to make the tech world more inclusive. Their wedding was the social event of the year, a perfect fusion of traditions that reflected their commitment to bridging different worlds. Maya wore a stunning crimson and gold lehenga for the ceremony, changing into a classic white gown for the reception. James learned to dance to Bollywood numbers, while Maya's father taught him the electric slide. The press dubbed them the first couple of Silicon Valley. Their modernist mansion in the Los Altos Hills became a hub for the tech elite, hosting legendary charity galas that raised millions for STEM education in underserved communities. They graced the covers of Forbes, Time, and Vogue, their love story becoming a symbol of Silicon Valley's potential for positive change. Maya and James worked tirelessly to create opportunities for others, establishing scholarships for minority students in tech, funding women-led startups, and creating mentorship programs that helped hundreds of young entrepreneurs. Their partnership seemed to embody the perfect marriage of purpose and passion, innovation and inclusion. Within 5 years, Tech Fusion expanded globally, opening offices in London, Singapore, and Tel Aviv. Maya's technical innovations kept pushing boundaries, while James's strategic brilliance kept shareholders happy and competitors scrambling to catch up. They seemed unstoppable, the perfect power couple breaking barriers and setting new standards in both business and marriage. Their daily routine became the stuff of legend in Silicon Valley. They started each morning with a strategy breakfast, discussing company direction over Maya's homemade chai and James's protein smoothies. They worked out together in their home gym, attended board meetings as a united front, and ended most days reviewing projects in their home office. But perhaps their greatest joint achievement was changing the face of Silicon Valley leadership. Maya became a role model for a generation of young women in tech, proving that excellence knew no boundaries of gender or race. James was celebrated for championing diversity in an industry known for its homogeneity. They appeared to have it all: brilliance, wealth, purpose, and a love that defied society's expectations. Their marriage was held up as proof that power couples could maintain both professional success and personal harmony. They seemed to have discovered the secret formula for having it all. Yet, as Maya would soon discover, appearance and reality can be as different as code and its execution. Power has a way of revealing true colors, and success can sometimes plant the seeds of its own destruction. 2. The first cracks. The changes began so subtly that Maya almost missed them, like minor glitches in an otherwise perfect program. It started with the arrival of Victoria Porter, headhunted from their biggest competitor with credentials that seemed too perfect to ignore. Tall, blonde, and armed with an MBA from Wharton, Victoria brought impressive experience in international markets that Tech Fusion desperately needed for its global expansion. Maya had actually championed Victoria's hiring, impressed by her presentation on Asian market penetration strategies. James initially seemed hesitant, but after a private meeting to discuss Victoria's potential role, he became her strongest advocate. Looking back, Maya would recognize this as the first warning sign she chose to ignore. The transformation in James was gradual but unmistakable. Board meetings that once ended promptly at 5 p.m. started stretching into late-night strategy sessions. His phone, which had always been open to Maya, gained a new password. He began taking walks in their garden during calls, his voice too low to carry through the open windows. Victoria's integration into Tech Fusion's upper echelons was seamless, perhaps too seamless. She had an uncanny ability to anticipate James's needs, bringing him coffee exactly how he liked it, having presentations prepared moments before he asked for them. Her office, initially assigned to the East Wing, somehow migrated closer to James's suite during a routine floor plan reorganization. Maya noticed the subtle changes in Victoria's appearance over time. The conservative suits gave way to designer dresses that somehow always complemented James's ties. Her perfume, an expensive French brand, seemed to linger in the conference room long after meetings ended. She began styling her hair the way Maya used to wear hers, before she switched to her current sleek bob. The weekly dinner dates that had been a cornerstone of Maya and James's relationship began to fade. First, it was emergency board meetings that couldn't be rescheduled. Then, international video calls that had to happen during dinner hours due to time zones. Client crises that required immediate attention always seemed to pop up on their date nights. James's excuses became increasingly elaborate, yet vague. Strategic planning sessions ran late into the night, but produced few tangible results. Business trips that never used to require his presence suddenly became critical for him to attend personally. Victoria, naturally, needed to accompany him to these trips for market research. Maya watched their subtle interactions during meetings. The lingering eye contact, the inside jokes, the casual touches that lasted a fraction too long. She noticed how Victoria positioned herself in James's line of sight during presentations, how her questions always seemed designed to highlight his intelligence rather than challenge his ideas. The intimacy between Maya and James began to erode like a slow-moving digital decay. Their morning strategy breakfasts became silent affairs, with James absorbed in his phone. The home office that had been their shared space saw less and less of him as he spent more time at the office. Even their shared workout sessions dwindled as James started claiming early meetings required him to use the corporate gym instead. Their last meaningful conversation happened over cooling cups of coffee one Sunday morning. Maya tried to address the growing distance, her analytical mind laying out the patterns she'd observed. James dismissed her concerns with practiced ease, citing work stress and market pressures. But his eyes never quite met hers, and his kiss goodbye felt mechanical, like a program running on autopilot. The physical changes in James were subtle but telling. New cologne replaced his signature scent. Designer suits replaced his usual comfortable business wear. He began spending more time at the gym, coming home later and later. His wedding ring spent more time on his desk during presentations than on his finger. Maya noticed how office dynamics shifted during meetings. Junior executives who once sought her approval now deferred to James first. Victoria had somehow positioned herself as a gatekeeper to James's attention, controlling his schedule and, by extension, access to key decisions. The couple's public appearances became exercises in performance art. They maintained their image as Silicon Valley's power couple, but the genuine warmth had been replaced by choreographed displays of affection. Maya became acutely aware of the cameras, of the need to maintain appearances while her private world crumbled. Their home, once a sanctuary of shared dreams and intimate conversations, became a stage where they played their parts with increasing detachment. The silence between them grew louder than their conversations. Every room held memories of happier times that now felt like ancient history. As autumn turned to winter, Maya found herself alone more often in their massive house, watching security footage of James's car leaving late at night for emergency meetings. She noticed Victoria's car in the corporate parking lot during these late nights and how it would disappear shortly after James's departure. 3. The devastating crash. The accident happened on a rain-slicked evening in March, when Silicon Valley's microclimate turned treacherous with unexpected storms. Maya was driving home from a late investor meeting, her Tesla Model S gliding through the darkness like a phantom. The quarterly projections had gone well, but her mind wasn't on the successful presentation. Instead, it kept cycling through the strange text message she'd glimpsed on James's phone that morning. "Can't wait for Paris next month. She'll never know." Traffic on Highway 101 was lighter than usual, the rain keeping most drivers home. Maya's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, her wedding ring catching the gleam of passing headlights. She hadn't told James about the investor meeting, a small test to see if he'd notice her absence. He hadn't. His own calendar showed a board meeting that would supposedly run late, but she'd overheard Victoria canceling the other board members' attendance earlier that day. The first hydroplane came without warning. The Tesla's wheels lost traction on the curved exit ramp, sending the car into a graceful spin. Maya's trained instincts from advanced driving courses kicked in, but the physics of momentum had other plans. In those slow-motion moments before impact, memories cascaded through her mind like falling dominoes. James's first smile across the Stanford auditorium, their first kiss overlooking the bay, their wedding vows, the gradual cooling of his touch. The impact with the guardrail came first, a screaming collision of metal on metal. The secondary spin sent the car toward the concrete barrier. Maya's last conscious thought was of the irony. She had helped design the Tesla's AI safety systems, yet here she was, at the mercy of simple weather and physics. She drifted in and out of consciousness as first responders worked to extract her from the wreckage. The rain had turned to a fine mist, refracting the emergency lights into halos of red and blue. Through the haze of shock and emerging pain, she heard the paramedics calling her name, checking her vitals, radioing ahead to the trauma center. It took 2 hours for James to arrive at the hospital. Maya, floating on a cloud of preliminary pain medication, caught the scent of unfamiliar perfume on his collar when he finally leaned down to kiss her forehead. His shirt was wrinkled in a way that suggested hasty dressing, and a faint smudge of lipstick colored his collar, not the shade she wore. The doctors diagnosed 3 shattered ribs, a fractured pelvis, and various contusions. Maya watched through half-closed eyes as James paced the hospital room, taking calls in the hallway, his voice carrying through the door. "No, have to postpone Paris. Yes, she's stable. No, don't come to the hospital. Yes, we'll need to revise the schedule." During her week in intensive care, James visited exactly once more. He sent his personal assistant with flowers and perfectly reasonable excuses, emergency board meetings, crucial investor calls, decisions that couldn't wait. The flowers were lilies. He'd forgotten she was allergic. Or perhaps he'd never known. Victoria had sent a tasteful orchid arrangement with a note expressing the company's concern. The handwriting on the card matched the writing Maya had seen on James's meeting notes. The nights in the hospital were long and quiet, broken only by the steady beeping of monitors and the soft footfalls of nurses. Maya used this time to think, really think, about her marriage. Each absent call, each missed visit, each transparent excuse formed a pattern she could no longer ignore. The pain medication cleared from her system, but the clarity remained. Her husband was not just having an affair, he was orchestrating her professional eclipse. In those long, lonely hours, Maya's mind, the same mind that had revolutionized artificial intelligence, began to work on a different kind of problem. The solution came to her gradually, like code assembling itself in her subconscious. The accident wasn't the end of her story, it was an opportunity for a complete system reboot. The final piece fell into place when she overheard two nurses discussing a patient who had faked symptoms for insurance fraud. Maya's eyes opened wide in the darkness, a plan crystallizing with the perfect clarity that had made her a tech visionary. Sometimes, the best way to debug a system was to let it run until it failed catastrophically. 4. The perfect deception. Dr. Elena Rodriguez wasn't just Maya's attending physician. She was also a longtime friend from Stanford and a secret shareholder in Tech Fusion's early days. During their private consultations, Maya shared her suspicions and evidence, and together they crafted a plan that would make Silicon Valley's greatest deceptions look amateur by comparison. Maya's actual injuries were serious but temporary, the kind that required months of physical therapy but promised a full recovery. But with Dr. Rodriguez's help, they began building an elaborate alternative medical narrative. Maya's technical expertise in creating untraceable system modifications came in handy as they carefully altered hospital records to show severe spinal cord damage. They built a comprehensive paper trail, MRI results showing devastating nerve damage, consultation reports from leading specialists, carefully generated and backdated, treatment plans for permanent paralysis, and detailed prognoses that painted a picture of life-altering disability. Each document was a masterpiece of medical fiction, layered with just enough truth to withstand casual scrutiny. Maya approached her deception like she approached coding, with meticulous attention to detail and extensive research. She spent hours studying spinal cord injuries, learning the precise ways such injuries affected movement, muscle tone, and reflexes. She practiced the subtle signs of nerve damage when she was alone, the slight delay in responses, the careful way paralyzed patients shifted their weight. Dr. Rodriguez helped her master the physical aspects of the deception. They worked on transfer techniques, how to move from bed to wheelchair in a way that suggested partial paralysis. Maya learned how to simulate muscle weakness convincingly, how to position her legs naturally when seated, how to show the appropriate level of struggle with everyday tasks. The hospital staff was kept to a minimum, with Dr. Rodriguez carefully controlling who had access to Maya's case. They chose nurses who worked limited shifts and would rotate out before they could become too familiar with her case. Each medical consultation was carefully staged, with trusted doctors who owed either Maya or Dr. Rodriguez significant favors. James's reaction to the diagnosis was everything Maya expected. She watched through carefully hooded eyes as he received the news, noting how quickly his expression shifted from shock to calculation. He asked all the right questions about her prognosis, her future capabilities, her potential role at Tech Fusion. Maya caught the slight smile he tried to hide when discussing how the board would need to restructure company leadership. They built the deception in layers, like a secure encryption protocol. Maya made sure to show just enough improvement to be credible, small victories in physical therapy that nevertheless confirmed the permanence of her condition. She allowed herself to be photographed for company updates, carefully staged images of determination in the face of adversity that sent Tech Fusion's stock soaring. Victoria's visits to the hospital were particularly illuminating. She came bearing sympathy and corporate documents requiring Maya's signature. each visit an exercise in subtle power plays. Maya noted how Victoria had already begun adopting the mannerisms of a de facto executive partner, how her suggestions carried the weight of assumed authority. The final touch was psychological. Maya began expressing acceptance of her new limitations, talking about adapting to a different role at Tech Fusion. She watched James and Victoria exchange glances when they thought she wasn't looking, saw how they began positioning themselves for the transition they assumed was coming. When Maya was released from the hospital, she made sure the media captured her exit, the brilliant CEO bravely facing a new reality. The photos went viral. Maya in the wheelchair, James pushing it with a practiced expression of devotion, Victoria hovering nearby with perfectly composed concern. The narrative wrote itself in headlines across the tech world. Tech Fusion CEO's inspiring battle. Silicon Valley power couple faces greatest challenge. Every medical record was bulletproof. Every document backstopped with redundant verification. Maya even arranged for a specialist in Switzerland to confirm her diagnosis remotely, a doctor who existed only in carefully crafted medical credentials and digital footprints. The deception was a work of art, a symphony of medical records, digital artifacts, and human psychology. At night, alone in her hospital bed, Maya would exercise quietly, maintaining her strength while appearing to weaken. She kept a private journal of James and Victoria's visits, noting every inconsistency, every whispered conversation, every telling glance. The journal was encrypted, of course, stored in a distributed system only she could access. As her release date approached, Maya finalized the last pieces of her plan. She had mapping sensors installed throughout their mansion under the guise of mobility aids, every room monitored in ways that would make surveillance experts envious. Everything was prepared for the next phase. All she needed now was for James and Victoria to play their parts. The day Maya left the hospital, she allowed herself one small secret smile. In trying to manipulate her, they had forgotten the most important rule of Silicon Valley: never underestimate someone who wrote their own code. 5. The Wheelchair Charade. The transformation of the Patel-Williams mansion was a masterpiece of calculated performance art. Maya orchestrated every detail of her supposed adaptation to wheelchair life with the same precision she once used to architect AI systems. The installation of ramps, handrails, and automated doors became a media event, with tech blogs praising James's devotion to creating an accessible home for his wife. Behind the scenes, Maya embedded cutting-edge sensors and cameras throughout the house, disguised as smart home accessories for disability assistance. Every room, every hallway, every possible meeting spot was under surveillance, feeding data to a secure server only she could access. The security system, ostensibly upgraded for her safety, was a web of her own design. James hired Diane Chen, a full-time nurse recommended by Dr. Rodriguez, unaware that Diane was actually a former cybersecurity specialist who owed her career to Maya's mentorship. Diane became Maya's eyes and ears, monitoring the household's rhythms while maintaining her cover as a medical professional. She tracked James's patterns, Victoria's visits, and every suspicious deviation from routine. Maya's performance was flawless. During board meetings conducted from her wheelchair in their home office, she projected an image of dignified struggle. She allowed her voice to tire slightly during long sessions, her hands to tremble just enough when handling documents. She played the role of a brilliant mind trapped in an uncooperative body, earning admiration for her resilience while stoking unconscious assumptions about her diminished capabilities. The chair itself became her prop and fortress. Maya chose a sleek, custom-designed model that symbolized both disability and tech-world luxury. During video calls, she made sure the chair was always visible, a constant reminder of her condition. She mastered the art of shifting uncomfortably during long meetings, timing these movements to coincide with discussions of company strategy. James took the bait completely. Within weeks, he began asserting more control over day-to-day operations, positioning himself as Tech Fusion's new public face. Maya watched him flourish in the spotlight, noting how he subtly rewrote their shared history in interviews, emphasizing his role in the company's success while casting her as the brilliant but now limited creator. Victoria's integration into their home life was equally telling. She began arriving early for meetings, staying late to help James with the transition. Her designer outfits grew more expensive, her manner more assured. She took to using Maya's favorite coffee mug, rearranging items in the home office, small territorial markers that she thought went unnoticed. Maya documented everything. Each late-night meeting, every whispered conversation, all the subtle touches and lingering glances, all captured and categorized by her hidden systems. She maintained 2 sets of notes, one in a simple document on her laptop, filled with apparent voice-to-text errors suggesting her struggling with technology, and another, encrypted and comprehensive, detailing every betrayal. The hardest part was maintaining the physical deception. Maya exercised in secret, late at night in a specially prepared room shielded from all surveillance except her own. She kept her muscles toned while carefully maintaining the appearance of deterioration. Every morning, Diane would help her apply subtle makeup to suggest fatigue and stress, crafting the image of a woman fighting against gradual decline. Society galas and tech events became opportunities for James to showcase his devotion. He would wheel Maya around carefully, accepting praise for his dedication while she noted how his hand would brush Victoria's when passing drinks. Maya became adept at reading upside-down text messages and reflecting surfaces, building her catalog of evidence through seemingly passive observation. Their bedroom arrangements provided the perfect cover for James's gradual withdrawal. The hospital bed installed for Maya's comfort gave him an excuse to sleep separately. Late-night work sessions became more frequent, with Victoria's car often visible from Maya's window, parked in the shadows of the corporate lot. The executive team slowly realigned around James, following his lead in treating Maya with careful, patronizing respect. In board meetings, her insights were met with patient nods rather than the swift action they once inspired. Maya allowed this shift, noting each person's loyalty, building a map of influence she would later use to devastating effect. Through it all, Maya maintained her poise and apparent gratitude. She thanked James for his support, praised his leadership in her absence, and expressed appreciation for Victoria's assistance. Each word of praise was a strand in the web she was weaving, each compliment a thread that would later tighten into a noose. The charade continued for 3 months. 3 months of watching, waiting, and documenting. 3 months of James growing bolder, of Victoria becoming more entrenched, of power shifting in exactly the way Maya had predicted. 3 months of gathering evidence, building her case, and preparing for the moment when everything would change. And through it all, Maya kept one truth closest to her heart. In the tech world, the most dangerous opponent isn't the one who threatens you, but the one who lets you think you're winning. 6. The Midnight Discovery. The night of revelation was carefully chosen. Maya had tracked their patterns for weeks, noting how James and Victoria grew increasingly careless as they became confident in her disability. The quarterly board meeting was scheduled for the next morning, timing that Maya knew would prove crucial to her plans. It began like many other nights. James begged off dinner, citing last-minute preparations for the board presentation. Maya watched through her network of sensors as Victoria arrived at the office entrance, her keycard granting access to the executive floor. The timeline played out exactly as expected. Urgent phone calls, rustling papers, the gradual migration from the conference room to the more private executive suite. Maya waited in her wheelchair in the darkened living room, screens glowing softly as she monitored their movements. She had positioned herself perfectly, invisible from the main entrance but with a clear view of the stairs and hallway. The house's smart lighting system, responding to her coded commands, maintained strategic shadows while recording everything. Victoria's arrival at the mansion was preceded by her designer perfume, the same scent Maya had detected on James's clothes months ago. The security system logged their entry but remained silent, another modification Maya had implemented during the accessibility upgrades. Their whispered laughs carried through the quiet house, their footsteps tracing a path to the guest wing. Maya allowed herself a small smile as she watched their shadows pass. Her chair's wheels made no sound on the custom carpeting as she followed at a distance. Every movement was calculated, each pause timed to the rhythm of their distraction. She had rehearsed this choreography countless times in her mind. The guest room door stood slightly ajar, spilling a thin line of light across the hallway. Maya positioned her chair at the perfect angle, hidden in darkness but able to observe through the reflection in a strategically placed mirror. Her phone, specially modified with enhanced audio capture capabilities, recorded every sound, every murmured endearment meant for privacy. She watched their betrayal unfold through the mirror's reflection, documenting every detail. Victoria had made herself at home, her belongings scattered across furniture Maya had chosen years ago. James moved with the comfort of familiarity, suggesting this was far from their first encounter in this room. The most revealing elements were the small things. The drawer Victoria knew contained extra towels, the way James automatically adjusted the room's temperature to her preference, the bottle of her favorite wine already chilled and waiting. This wasn't an impulsive encounter, it was a well-established routine. Maya's surveillance system captured everything in perfect clarity, the discriminating evidence she needed, the damning conversations about their future plans, their dismissive comments about her condition. Each word, each action was encrypted and backed up to secure servers, building an irrefutable case for the morning to come. The timing had to be perfect. Maya waited until they were completely absorbed in their betrayal, until their guard was fully down. She sent a silent command to her phone, initiating the first phase of her plan, a series of precisely timed messages to key board members scheduled to arrive throughout the night. The house's temperature control system, another of her modified accessibility features, began recording thermal imagery, mapping heat signatures and movements. Every piece of evidence was being cataloged, time-stamped, and verified through multiple sources. In the digital age, Maya knew, redundancy was everything. When the moment came, Maya executed her plan with algorithmic precision. The house's lighting system responded to her command, brightening smoothly to full illumination. Her wheelchair's electric motor hummed softly as she moved into position. Then, with the grace of a practiced dancer, she stood. Standing in the doorway, Maya allowed herself to fully inhabit this moment of revelation. Her voice, when it came, cut through their passionate haze like a laser through silicon. "Well, isn't this cozy?" The looks of horror on their faces were perfect. James frozen in disbelief, Victoria scrambling for covers, neither of them yet realizing that their shock was being broadcast live to select members of the board. Maya's phone continued recording as she stepped forward, her movements fluid and strong. "Please," she said with a smile that could freeze hydrogen. "Don't let me interrupt. The board is finding this quite enlightening." She held up her phone, its screen showing the active broadcast to the emergency board meeting group. In that frozen moment, as understanding dawned in James's eyes, Maya saw the future unfolding with the clarity of a perfectly executed program. By morning, their world would be remapped according to her calculations. She had learned long ago that in both tech and revenge, timing was everything. And as she stood there, straight and strong, Maya proved that in Silicon Valley, the most devastating disruptions often come from those who were underestimated. 7. The confrontation. Time seemed to crystallize in the guest room as Maya stood in the doorway, her phone steady in her hand, broadcasting their shame to the carefully selected board members. James's face cycled through emotions like a malfunctioning display: shock, fear, anger, and finally, the dawning realization of complete destruction. "How?" James managed to stammer, clutching a sheet to his chest, his carefully maintained image of Silicon Valley's most devoted husband shattering like cheap code. Victoria had backed herself into a corner, her designer outfit scattered across the floor like discarded startup dreams. How? Maya's laugh was crystalline, sharp enough to cut through their excuses before they could form. I wrote the algorithms that power the most sophisticated AI systems in the world. Did you really think I couldn't write a program to track your pathetic attempts at deception? Her heels clicked on the hardwood floor as she moved further into the room, each step a deliberate refutation of their months of lies. The live feed continued streaming to her carefully curated audience, the board's ethics committee chair, their largest institutional investor, and the head of legal compliance. "Maya, please," James tried again, reaching for his discarded pants. "We can explain. Your accident, the stress, we were just—" "Spare me the procedurally generated excuses," Maya cut him off. With a few taps on her phone, the room's hidden speakers came to life, playing a greatest hits compilation of their betrayal, whispered plans to ease her out of the company, conversations about their future together, discussions of their upcoming Paris trip. Victoria finally found her voice. "You can't prove anything. It's our word against—" "Against what?" Maya smiled, the same smile she used to give investors before revealing a revolutionary breakthrough. "Against the thousands of hours of surveillance footage? Against the financial records showing your private villa purchases? Against the email threads I recovered from the deleted server archives?" She turned to face James directly. "Did you forget who designed Tech Fusion's security systems? Who wrote the backup protocols? Who built the AI that monitors all corporate communications?" Each question was a nail in the coffin of his career. The room's lighting shifted subtly, highlighting their guilty expressions for the live stream. Maya had designed every aspect of this confrontation with the same attention to detail she brought to product launches. "The board has already received comprehensive documentation of your misconduct, financial fraud, corporate espionage, attempted hostile takeover. It's amazing what people will discuss when they think no one's listening." James made one last attempt at damage control. "The shareholders will never—" "The shareholders?" Maya's interruption was softly devastating. "Check your phone, James. The emergency board meeting began streaming 15 minutes ago. Your voting shares are already being suspended pending investigation." Victoria lunged for her phone, only to find it locked out of all corporate systems. Maya watched with clinical satisfaction as panic replaced the other woman's usual composed confidence. "Don't bother," she advised. "Your access was revoked approximately 45 seconds ago. That's also when the SEC received an anonymous tip about your insider trading activities." With perfect timing, both their phones buzzed with notifications, the first headlines breaking across tech news sites. Tech Fusion Board announces emergency investigation. CEO uncovers massive corporate conspiracy. Silicon Valley power couple's secret war. Maya moved to the doorway, her posture straight and regal. "I suggest you both dress quickly. Security will be here in approximately 3 minutes. Do try to maintain what little dignity you have left." She paused, then added with surgical precision, "Oh, and James? I'm keeping the house." As if on cue, the mansion's security system began its lockdown protocol, sealing all exits except the front door. Through her phone, Maya could see the board members' reactions, could track the real-time collapse of James and Victoria's carefully constructed future. In the end, she mused, betrayal was just another type of failed code, and she had always been excellent at debugging. 8. The Sweet Revenge. The aftermath of Maya's revelation swept through Silicon Valley like a technological tsunami. By sunrise, James and Victoria had been escorted from the premises by corporate security, their access cards deactivated, their company devices wiped clean. Maya watched their departure from her home office, sipping the same chai she'd pretended to struggle with during her wheelchair performance. The emergency board meeting continued until dawn, but its outcome was never in doubt. Maya's evidence was overwhelming, a masterclass in digital forensics. She had documented everything: the gradual embezzlement of development funds into shell companies, the leaked trade secrets to competitors, the elaborate plan to force her out using her supposed disability as leverage. Tech Fusion's stock opened sharply down but rallied spectacularly once Maya released a carefully worded statement reassuring investors of her full recovery and complete control of the company. By mid-morning, financial analysts were praising her strategic genius, reframing the entire wheelchair incident as a brilliant counterintelligence operation. The press coverage was everything Maya had orchestrated. Headlines competed for the most dramatic take: Tech Queen's masterful sting operation, Silicon Valley's greatest corporate takedown, AI pioneer exposes billion-dollar betrayal. She gave one exclusive interview, carefully chosen to set the narrative she wanted. Brilliant CEO uncovers conspiracy, turns personal betrayal into corporate triumph. James's fall was spectacular and complete. The SEC investigation Maya had triggered uncovered patterns of financial misconduct dating back months. His attempts to claim ignorance fell apart against her documented evidence. His reputation, so carefully built on the image of the devoted husband and visionary leader, crumbled under the weight of leaked recordings showing his true character. Victoria fared no better. Maya's anonymous tips led investigators to offshore accounts, secret properties, and a network of industrial espionage that stretched across 3 continents. The former secretary's dreams of climbing the corporate ladder through seduction ended in multiple federal indictments. Her designer wardrobe was exchanged for prison attire. The tech world's response was swift and decisive. Companies across Silicon Valley began implementing what they called Patel protocols, enhanced security measures designed to prevent similar corporate infiltrations. Maya was invited to give keynote speeches about corporate security and leadership, her reputation soaring as the woman who had not only survived betrayal, but turned it into a case study in strategic thinking. Tech Fusion emerged stronger under Maya's sole leadership. She used the scandal to implement sweeping changes, promoting loyal employees who had quietly supported her during her recovery. The company's market value doubled within 6 months as she unveiled a new generation of AI security systems, ironically inspired by her own surveillance operation. The mansion saw its own transformation. Maya replaced every trace of James's presence, donating his remaining possessions to charity. The guest room, where she had exposed their betrayal, became a state-of-the-art home laboratory. She kept the wheelchair, though, displaying it in her office as a reminder that sometimes the greatest power lies in being underestimated. Dr. Rodriguez was rewarded with a seat on Tech Fusion's board and a generous grant for her hospital's research department. Diane Chen became the company's new chief security officer, her unique combination of medical knowledge and cybersecurity expertise proving invaluable in developing new privacy protection protocols. James attempted one last desperate move, trying to sell his story to a major tech publication. Maya's response was simple and devastating. She released the complete surveillance records to selected journalists. The story died before it could begin, buried under an avalanche of evidence of his own machinations. From her office overlooking the San Francisco Bay, Maya watched her empire grow stronger. The betrayal that was meant to end her career had instead become the foundation of her legend. In boardrooms across Silicon Valley, executives spoke in hushed tones about the woman who had turned corporate revenge into an art form. A year after the confrontation, Maya received a letter from Victoria's prison cell, a desperate plea for forgiveness and a second chance. Maya had her AI system send back a simple response. "Hello, Victoria. Unfortunately, this email address has been deactivated, but I'm sure you remember how that feels." The final irony came when James's new startup failed to secure funding, every venture capital firm in the valley quietly refusing to touch any project associated with his name. He was last seen leaving Silicon Valley in a used car, his dreams of tech glory reduced to a cautionary tale told at startup incubators. And Maya? She had transformed her story of betrayal into an empire of triumph, proving that in the end, the most powerful code isn't written in computers, but in the careful orchestration of justice.